everybody, good morning and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host Anne, and disembodied hands, Justin, and whoever else is out there. Hello everybody. Good morning. So I food poisoned myself and David last night. I should say we food poisoned ourselves. But I'm here. I'm in better shape than he is actually. So if I seem a little bit distracted today, that's why. So I'm going to get out my colors while we chat. Oh no, cart, I pushed you too far back. There it is. Only downside of rolly cart for paints, happy upside is that I can get it out of the way. Oh, you're dealing with the same thing right now? Oh, thanks, Luthar. It was a pleasure meeting you too. Yeah, we... Like sometimes, okay, I hate to say this. This is a generalization. I'm sure women do this just as often. But I think sometimes we've had it pounded into our heads a little bit more not to use food that's in the fridge too long. David tends to use like condiments and stuff that have been in the fridge a long time. So he used one of those last night, and I have finally proved to the point where if it's been around for a long time, we should just replace it. Because it definitely hit both of us. And with my issues, that's like, yeah, but my guts are also probably in better shape than his because I take a ton of probiotics and stuff. So your mileage may vary, but yeah. So take it from us, guys. If you have a condiment that's been sitting in the fridge for like 4 or 5 or 6 months, just assume that it might not be good anymore. Toss it. It would cost you $3 to replace it, and then you wouldn't have to deal with what I'm dealing with right now. Haha. Right. And sometimes when you've got an oil, it'll be a preservative and it'll kind of operate that way. Oils were used to preserve food a long time ago. But you're taking a chance, right? If it's been in there a long time, if it's been in there long enough where you're like, when was the last time I used this? Think about just getting rid of it and paying the $3. Just so you don't end up like I'm feeling right now. Oh, right. Well, there's exceptions, like pickled stuff, right? Pickled stuff is made to last for ages. But yeah. So just be careful. However, for those who are brand new, like I'm suffering from a bit of food poisoning this morning, as is David. He actually tried to go to work and ended up coming home, and he's like stuck in bed right now. I feel a bit better, possibly because I've got so many guts problems that I take a bunch of like probiotics and stuff. So I feel good enough to stream. But he definitely is suffering, so we poisoned ourselves. Yes, it's a poison we think is tasty. Yes, and I just found out from our gardener that we have a hot pepper bush with the tiny little hot peppers that are full of seeds that have almost no flesh. Like, are pretty much just skin and seeds. So they're like nuclear hot. Like, David tried taking a tiny bite out of one. He was like, yeah, for a few minutes there, I was in serious pain. So we've got this bush full of beautiful hot peppers that are just way too hot for us to use. They're tiny. They're not round. I think Scotch bonnets round. Habaneros are round, right? Or rounder, right? These look like tiny little jalapenos, but they're like just about that long, and they can be red and green. Yeah. Yeah, Gray Mouser, but then you're rolling the dice. We rolled the dice last night, and yeah. It did not work for us. Well, yeah, Agent Marvel, but a lot of people like also think, and David was one of these. He's like, well, the date on the bottle, and I'm like, that date ceases to exist the minute you open it. Like in my experience, like, you know, it could be good till 2022 on the bottle, but the minute you open it, it is no longer good till 2022. Yeah, they could be Thai peppers. Yeah, I don't think they're Mexican because our gardener is Mexican, and he like they're actually, it's actually a bush grown from peppers that his grandfather brought into the country, and like he's just been like taking the peppers and growing new bushes. So whenever he has a client who wants a hot pepper bush and he's like seriously hot, then he'll essentially like bring one of the, because he grows them in little seedlings. So yeah, there's a big difference between Best Buy and Sell By, right? Yeah, I don't know. I'm suspicious once it's been opened. I should have like kind of like, you know, I should have had my better self thinking last night before I used it. But anyway, so that's what we're dealing with this morning, and I need to look at my recipes, because we are going to use some green. Oh, I need my troll flesh. I found my dungeon dwellers, finally. 1 second. Okay, I thought I found my dungeon dwellers. There it is. So, like, it was one of the last boxes I unpacked yesterday looking for the other thing that I didn't find. Yeah, right. Well, see, I do that, Luthar, but David does not. So when I brought stuff over from the fridge, I was grabbing the newer stuff and just, I was keeping the old stuff in the old fridge because I'm like, I probably will just toss this. But David brought a load over from the fridge because I asked him to pick up the mirin because I want to make teriyaki sauce. And so he grabbed a bunch of other stuff that if it had been me, I probably would have pitched. But it was there, and so I was like, well, I have this idea, and I could use this as a base. So, like I said, I think both of us are responsible. But it's now a thing. I'm just like, if it's an old thing, I'm gonna throw it out, and I don't want to hear about it. And he agreed, because he's just not feeling great. GVD Minis, thank you for the 16-month sub. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard. Like when you've got something like an olive tapenade, right? Which is what it was. Like it's hard to tell by smell then. Yeah, dairy is super evident. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like that was always kind of questionable with him before Gotham, but now it's real. Now it's like, oh yeah, if it's old and Anne says we should throw this out, let's just throw it out. We live a 3-minute walk from the local grocery store. We can walk over there and be back in like only 10 minutes. Like it's not like, for anything. All right, I need driftwood. I love using driftwood brown. Where are you, driftwood? Where'd I put you? There you are, driftwood brown. One of my favorite browns. Let's go down to the mini. Bird's eye peppers. Yeah. That's it. Yeah, I bet they're that. I bet they're bird's eyes. Oh, it's not round. It looks like a little jalapeno. Looks like a tiny jalapeno. Yeah, you guys are very conscientious about it. I'll tell David the stream supports me in this, but he's learned his lesson now. As have I. I've learned not to give him the benefit of the doubt on the food. Yeah. Right. Yeah, I don't use Ghost, habanero. I don't use any of that stuff. I like jalapenos, Anaheims, just a little bit. A little bit of heat. But Anaheim is usually, maybe Serrano is about as hot as I go. I do use Indian green chilies. I actually have them frozen. I thaw them and dice them so that I can have fresh, close to fresh Indian green chilies, because I can't find them really around here very easily. But yeah, I'm not acclimated to a lot of heat, because when I started having gut issues, that was one of the things I cut out, was stuff that was hot. Because I used to have a decent heat tolerance. I never would do ghost peppers. I mean, some of that stuff's just crazy. Like, people get a taste for it, but it is a toxin, so it's not something I ever want to do to my guts. There are plenty of things I enjoy eating more than super hot stuff, to put it another way. Right, yeah, once you stop acclimating. Oh, yeah. I don't know. I would be very angry at you, Thormel, if you sprung a hot pepper beer on me and didn't warn me. You might think it was funny, but I probably would never forgive you. Just to give you an idea of how much Anne likes that kind of surprise. Alrighty, there we go. Driftwood. But I don't like pranks in general. Like, I didn't like pranks even when I was a kid. Yeah. I don't like green bell peppers, but I really like red bell peppers. And I find jalapeno have a slightly different flavor to bell peppers, but hey, to each your mileage may vary, right? Like, the fact that some people can eat cilantro and some can't is proof that we all have slightly different, like, taste bud profiles, right? So, some people love the flavor of green pepper, and some people just, it tastes terrible. Like, for me, I'm not a green pepper fan. That said, in some dishes, I'm okay as long as it's cooked thoroughly, but I hate raw ones. Oh my gosh, I hate raw ones. Let's see here. Need a big mixing brush. Where's my big fat mixing brush? There it is. Haha. Oh, I love Cholula. I love Cholula. Cholula. Actually, the Chipotle Cholula is like crack. Like, I love that stuff. Oh my gosh. I put it on eggs, and when David makes breakfast potatoes, oh my gosh. I put it on an omelet the other day with avocado. Oh, it was so good. So good. Seriously. So yeah, if you love regular Cholula, try the Chipotle. It's smoky. It's like a smoky version. So good. I can't say enough good about it. Especially if you don't like a lot of spice, right? But yeah, it's got a lot of flavor in it. Oh yeah, and mac and cheese. I don't eat pasta, so I'm like, but yeah, it would be good in that. For sure. So I'm mixing up my green here because I want to do my green on the back of my fungus here, and then I want to get my red-orange mixed in. So we're going to wet blend this area today, and then we're going to line with our blue, and we're going to pick out details and try to finish this dress area today. Base coat, do you mean prime, Brenda Santini? I don't prime my bones ever. So this is a bones model, and you can see the bones material right there. And I'm just painting over it. What I do with bones is I wash them. So I always find it advisable to wash the bones. So I essentially, when I've got a fresh bones that I'm about to start on stream or paint in real life, regular life, I will throw it in a plastic mixing bowl with really hot water and a little bit of dish soap, and I'll sloosh it around just like 30 seconds, and then rinse it with hot water until the water runs clean and not sudsy. And then I let it dry on a towel overnight. And then it's good. Like, I can count on one hand, and it'll be two, the number of times on this stream in over 2 years that paint has been a little bit resistant to sticking to the model using that method. And even then I was able to overcome it just by adding a little bit of a thicker coat. So it's not that I don't believe in priming bones, it's just that I don't find it necessary. And I had a bad experience with priming bones and the primer interacting with bones, like way back in the dawn times when Reaper first started doing them. So once I realized that I could get great results through just washing the bones, I don't even look at primer anymore. There's no reason to. Bones black. Yep. Bones black, Bones USA, and Bones regular. All of these things I just use the washing technique on. And I've never had a problem. Like I said, I've had 2 times where it sort of wanted to beat up just a little, and I was able to overcome it. Yeah, no problem. I mean, there are primers that will work, and you can ask about them, like on any of our Reaper streams or in our Reaper Discord, and people will be happy to fill you in. But in general, like even if I want a zenith, like if I want to do a zenith prime on something, I pretty much did a zenith spray on this guy, but all I did was take a huge brush and really quickly base coat him in walnut brown. So near black, essentially. And then I just did the white spray over the top. So essentially his base coat was all the brown. And then I was able to because once you've got a base on, you can spray anything over the top. It doesn't matter if the primer would normally be bone safe or not, as long as you've got that first barrier. So you can get your zenith effect and bring out all your nice details and your lighting. Yeah, so, but yeah, it's just what you like, what you do. I kind of have that kind of system where it works, so I just use it. I just sprayed white over the top. So the reason you do zenith, Brandon, is if you are not really good at lighting, zenith can help you to visualize where to put your highlights and shadows. So this guy did kind of a strong white spray, but you can also just kind of do a partial one. Actually, let me grab a model that has a partial one or a directed lighting. 1 second, I have one. You could also just, when you build up from a dark brown or a black up through gray to white or with a thinned white, they call that sketch style. It's the same thing. You're essentially putting underpainting on the model to guide your choices. But you can get, if you're learning lighting effects, then you can use it to get a really strong lighting effect on a figure. So this orc bust from Black Sun has, I wanted a very strong frontal top lighting source, and I wanted some dramatic shadow. So I wasn't real confident at the time I primed this in doing directed lighting. So I was like, well, maybe this will help. And so I did the strong spray to bring out all the details of the bust. Oh, okay. A decent white on bones black. Oh, I don't build up from browns to get to white. It depends on what I'm doing. If you want a creamy, like a white with a creamy down side, I would go probably desert sand, creamy ivory, start next, and then pure white. If you want a gray, start around rainy gray up to misty. Let's see if I have these colors. 1 sec. Rainy gray, and then up to misty, and then up to pure white. If you want a blue gray, there's a great Pathfinder blue, Akata, that has a bit, you could add a bit more gray to this if you wanted it, but going up to white from this is possible. And Bryce just said he likes to spray white ink, with an airbrush, so that's also do it. But the bottom line is, you can start with a warm or a cold or a neutral tone and get a white. The question you should ask yourself is, what is this material and what color would it really be? Like polar bears and albino creatures, like alligators, have a yellowish tone to their white. And like a very icy creature might be a light blue or blue-gray. And then I usually, like for things like Templars, like linen cloth. Cloth tends to be a bit warmer of a white and tends not to have as stark gray shadows. This is going to give you a very illustrative, very dead gray white. It's not going to have a lot of life in it, so you can add a little bit of brown or blue to it to get it to look more natural. Because most things are not a pure neutral in nature. They have other colors. So, yes, exactly. Yeah, I use this kind of thing because I do a lot of, when I was painting the Templar armies for Reaper, the cloth is white, but I wanted a real warm tone because the other color on the Templars is a blue. So I wanted to kind of offset that and go with that direction, get a nice contrast with the cold blue and the warm cloth. So yeah, glad to help. All right, let's put Orky back over here. I'm thinking about painting Orky as one of my next minis. Since Noli is coming along really well. She was coming, she fell off. Noli was getting work done yesterday, so now her bones, her teeth and tusks are painted in, so. Alrighty, let's get on this. Enough fooling around. I've got my green mixed up. It's got a fair amount of troll flesh in it, which is a really, really warm olive, which you all know I really like. And did I throw it on the floor? I don't know. It went away. It ran away. It was here a second ago, but then I started reaching for things and it fell off my desk. Oh, there it is. It was hiding. This one, Troll Hide, Dungeon Dweller Paint, 9455. If you like olive greens, this is your baby. It's a good replacement for Swamp Green, which was canceled. Swamp Green is a little darker and not quite as green. I think this one's maybe a little more versatile sometimes. So then let's get our kind of peachy pink salmon come together. The black caps used to differentiate between special lines like Pathfinder and Bones. So MSP Bones, Pathfinder, and the core line, which was always white, MSP core colors, white. However, we started having problems with the black caps we got from our distributors, so Ed made the call to run through the remaining black caps and then just order white. So now in order to know to do the line, you're going to actually have to look at the label. So that is why we have some black caps and some white caps. I personally always liked the black caps, but there was a manufacturing glitch that was showing up way too often in the batches that we were ordering, and like a hole in that it wasn't filling in. So you want your cap to be airtight, so, or as close as you can. Yeah, so if we unearth a box of black caps, then we run through it, and those paints get black caps until we're done. And then eventually, I like the black, actually. I think the black looks better. But that's just me. Like, that's my aesthetic. The reason is that the black and the white contrast, I think, give you a truer sense of what the color actually looks like in the bottle. But it is what it is. And we can't use caps that are faulty. So we want you guys... I mean, this paint lasts for over a decade, and we want it to stay that way. So let me get my red in here. This is where, again, you like to kind of keep a note of how you've done your colors if you're doing a lot of mixing, so that you can have that. I need my Lotus Orange. Where are you, Lotus Orange? Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. Phew! I was nervous there. Yeah, there are gray ones out there, but we ran through those a long time ago, Rubicon, so it's an old bottle if you get a gray cap. I mean, by old, I mean just a few years. Yes, it does. It's because all colors change according to what is next to them. So the same color on a black cap will look different on a white cap. Absolutely it will. That's why with color theory, there is no absolute in color theory. It's like everything changes according to what colors you put on the model. All right, and then our rosy skin to make that come out. There we go. I really love this salmon color, and I want to use it on something else. Alrighty, we are good to go. Glasses and water. All right, I'm going to put these guys back real quick, get them off of my area. I like to keep my area very clean these days, very neat, so that I feel like I can come to it and sit down and start working. I know we all tend to build up a bit of a mess, and I'm as bad as the next person at times in doing that, but try to keep your area neat so that you always feel like you can sit down at it without cleaning it up. Otherwise, it's going to be an excuse for you not to paint. Because you're going to be like, oh my God, you know, I have to clean up and I don't feel like it right now. I guess I just still paint tomorrow or something, right? You get that going on. And I need Nightmare Black. Where's my Nightmare? Not there. Where's my Nightmare Black? There we go. Sweet. But yeah, that's something that I've learned painfully over the years is the more cluttered my painting area, the less inclined I feel to use it. Like, it will definitely impinge on my productivity. It'll make me feel more overwhelmed. Generally, it's just not a good space for me to create. So if you are like that, do consider getting into the habit of putting your paints away every day after you paint. And keeping your area nice and clear. There we are. I got a little bit of that blue and we're good. I did a lot of mixing on this model because I felt like it at the time. Hey, like if you're cleaning, 80s music is where it's at, man. I gotta say, I also crank up the 80s tunes. Although I have a little bit of new wave and alternative mixed into mine. There we go. That's a beautiful coral color. That's exactly the color I want. Nonsense. You need a very small area to actually paint. You might need an extra closet to store all your paint if you're like one of those people. I do have a box of paint still sitting at the old place that I need to get over here. Some of the stuff in our hobby closet is still like, it's like, well, we don't need this immediately, so yeah. And then I want some white. Alrighty. Sweet. And I think I want my Raphael today. I want a slightly bigger brush so that I can cover ground faster. Actually, yeah, let's do that. And I still want to be able to hit the fine points. And the Raphael brush is a very nice one because it's bigger, as you can see, than these guys down here. But it still has a very, very nice fine tip on it. Putting all my tubules down in one spot on in my drawer. Yeah, that's a good habit to have, Valendar. And you know, after a while, like it might seem like a pain in the butt at the beginning, but after a while, then you just get in the habit. You just do it, right? So, alrighty. Got some blue. Got some green. Let's smoosh. So we're going to be smooshing these together. Let's get closer and make sure we are in focus. There we go. And I want this green kind of like got it coming in on the sides. You have a little bit of the green underneath the cap here, but it's really hard to see, especially if you're tilting it back and you're looking at it from a normal viewing angle. So I want to introduce more of that green so that I have my color scheme repeated on both sides of the model. So we're going to bring that green in now. We're going to be blending it with our blue, which is a mixture of Nightmare Black, which is a very blue black, and Cyan Blue. And wet blending just lets me get a quick blend on it. To make it blend pretty effortlessly from that blue to that green. They're very dissimilar colors, right? So doing the wet blend is like kind of a quick way to get those two colors to mix nicely without doing a lot of transition. So we're going to be going back and forth. And the first thing I'm going to do is to bring in my blue and to kind of re-wet that edge. Lay it down. Then pick up, without rinsing out your brush, pick up a little bit of the green and start that in at one edge here. I'm using the same brush stroke. I'm just going to kind of like do a little dabbing brush stroke. And because I have a pretty fine tip on this brush, it's actually possible to kind of finesse it. I could also just use a big brush and do bigger, broader blends, but if you're trying to wet blend small areas, it pays to have a brush with a fine tip. You don't have to use one as big as this. You could be using a much smaller brush. The big brush holds a bit more paint, but for this little area stuff, it's not really as important. Oh yes, yeah. David does that. He used to eat the beef or the chicken and bean and the bean and cheese ones a lot for a quick lunch. They're much better with some Cholula. I agree. Cholula is just magic sauce. That's all. So if I'm going between the lighting effect here, where we have a little bit of a glow suggested. Take in your really dark blue-black, your Nightmare. Make sure that you've got kind of a darker strip between your lighting effect and where you're blending up the rest of it. This is something that happens naturally, and if you ever look at a model with two different light sources, you will probably see a darker shadow between them. So if you look at a model or a person for that matter, who's like lit by indoor light and outdoor light at the same time, the outdoor light is more blue, the indoor light tends to be warmer, you'll see kind of a shadow where those two things meet on the model. And so it's a natural effect, and duplicating it, if you ever are doing this sort of thing, is smart because it cues, it's something the eye recognizes as natural, so it works. It really is. The key is to put down enough paint on your initial layer so that it stays wet. Using thicker paint there. I mean, you can wet blend just as well with thinner paint, but thin paint does tend to capillary action a little more, so just be aware when you are working with it. Like if you're using really thin paint to wet blend, it will tend to kind of spread out a little bit. It's not going to necessarily stay where you put it. So kind of experiment a little bit between the thicker paint and thinner paint. I tend to use something in between, like a 2-to-1. It doesn't spread too badly then. But yeah, wet blending is a great way if you are trying to blend two colors quickly and they're very different colors, but you want to be able to go back and shade and highlight. Essentially doing the wet blend to get that quick transition is going to help set you up for success there. And with the added bonus that when you go back then and do your shading and highlighting, like when I go back and shade between all these little bits, that's going to help further the illusion of the fact that the colors are working together, right? It's going to break up any little clumpy areas that you maybe can see the transition, and it's going to give you further illusion that you want of the blend. So that's light. Now, sometimes a fine tip is not a plus in wet blending, and you may want to actually go with something that's a little bit more substantial on the tip. But here I think I can make it work. So I'm going to continue to kind of blend it in. If you're doing a big area, definitely use a big brush with a big tip. There we go. That's better. I'm going to extend my blue a little bit just so I can get the lighting effect to work a little better. Kind of got away from it there. There. And I need a little bit up here too. There we go. That's a bit better. I can correct that as we go on, but now let's go back to our green. So I think up top, I'm going to mostly use blues and greens for this section. And then as we go down here, we're going to go more to the coral color. So once again, kind of put your blue down first. And I'm using a slightly brighter blue. I do have my darker blue over here as well on my wet palette, so I can bring that in. And once you've got a nice kind of a strong puddle of the blue, you can bring in your green and just kind of blur the edge there. And the thing with wet blending is that you're never going to get a pure olive and you're never going to get a pure blue. Everything is going to be a different like shade of blend, but then you can always come back in and add pure olive or pure blue after it's dry and actually go back in with layering. But in the meantime, you get these cool transitions where you have two different colors playing together nicely, which is fun. There we go. And as long as it stays wet, you can futz with it. And so if you've got a slightly humid day, or if you live in a very arid climate, consider a humidifier for your room that you paint in. It might help you get more mileage and be able to, not worry about your paint drying quite as fast. There we go. I think I want actually a little bit of pure Nightmare Black here so I can get in a dark shadow. I'm going to put it on my palette. If you ever want a really intense blue black, Nightmare is your baby. It has a lot of blue in it. It is called black, but it is not. Once you add anything to it, you see that it is more blue than black. But if you just paint this color straight onto a model, it will dry looking black, assuming you do not have pure black on the model. And that's going to let me bring in a much darker line to differentiate these little steps of toadstool. So a little bit of dark lining. And I'm not actually thinning my Nightmare because I want it pretty strong since I'm already putting it into an area with a lot of thin paint. So I know there's already water involved and I don't need more water. And kind of one of the keys to wet blending is to not rinse your brush until you absolutely have to. Like when the paint starts gumming up in your brush or it's just starting to look mucky, that's your cue that you should rinse out your brush and repoint it and reload it. Glass bottles of coal black. Yeah, wet blending is fun. It's also a fun technique to teach kids because it's faster and more intuitive. So have them try it and, you know, if they like it and they take to it and they get good results with it, like let them run with it. Just doing a few more lines here just to make these little mushrooms pop out. But I had... I find that kids tend to like, I call it smooshing, so it sounds more fun. But kids tend to really take to wet blending because if they do like try it and get success, it's pretty simple, intuitive, and if you have a knack for it, it can be a very fast way to learn to shade and highlight. And kids like speed, you know. For me, I enjoy it because it lets you get those interesting blends between two colors, two extremes. It lets you get kind of an easy start on those, and then you can go back in and play around with it a little bit more. Well, if Coal Black, if they remake the holiday set for this year, which I don't know if they will make more Coal Black. All right, so once I did that dark line there, it was a little bit too much. I don't want a lot of it, like I don't want it to be too harsh, so I brought my green back in and blended it a little bit. So I just have a little bit of that line. You just want a little bit so it's a little crisper. And then when you bring in highlights, it'll get, you know, the details will stand out even more. There we go. We'll get the lining done. So you can see how these guys stand out a lot better. These guys don't. Oh, new holiday set. Cool. The problem, Branda, is that the holiday set like is really erratic in how it sells. Because you've got some colors in there that are very popular, but then you've got some colors that aren't. And so whether it's worth the resources, like Reaper will kind of decide from year to year. Otherwise, Reaper is definitely a company that tries not to do that tries not to create the scarcity mindset. We try to, if it's in print, you know, but some of the sets, like there are years the holiday set has sold abysmally. And so then it's the question of, is it worth keeping on the shelves? Because we have pretty limited space. I mean, we have that big factory for those of you who are at ReaperCon. But you also maybe saw that a lot of the storage space for paint is already taken up with paint. And until we have space in a new building for the paint department to expand, you kind of have to pay attention to that. And to make room for a thing, you have to get rid of another thing. But in general, I would say Reaper is not usually the, oh, this is selling, but we're not going to sell it to you anyway. But we're not that kind of company. Sometimes I've wished that Ed would keep things a little bit more scarce and special, but he's just all like, if it sells, sell it. There we go. So we're getting that all lined in. Yeah, I don't think it's sold in the summer before. We always have a highly disgruntled squirrel out there. Oh, there he is. Usually, often he's sitting in the tree right across, and so we can hear him really well on this stream. But there's this big bull squirrel who's like totally always very disgruntled and yelling at people in the morning. I just think it's funny. I like to think, because he tends to, I think he's the squirrel that probably like steals our figs and tomatoes. I like to think that he's just getting hopped up on sugar and then like freaking out. Sadie or whoever. Okay, the old holiday set was only being sold in the summer because it was being discontinued in favor of a new set. That's entirely possible. I mean, Sadie was the manager, but I'm not sure who's the, like, I know that other people have been trained. Paint is a handful, so finding exactly the right person for it is a challenge. But yeah, Sadie was the person who took over it right after I did. But I know that there's another UNT art student that Ed trained also as a backup. Yes, the squirrel's out there complaining about the blending. Yes. Hey now, nobody, like, new people don't know what Reaper's procedures are. And Brand is right. Like, a lot of companies are like that. Like, I get continually frustrated by some of the companies who, like, put out a product for only 3 days, And then after that, you're screwed. Like, it's like, why won't you just take my money? Why did you do that, right? And it's not, presumably, not benefiting you, the creator, except the only way, the way it does benefit you is that you just have to worry about, the initial run, and you don't have to carry any inventory, which I suppose, if you're very small, if you're a one-person operation, then maybe that's a plus for you. But as me, as an artist, there's entirely too many companies doing that, and I get very frustrated about it. So, totally fair observation about some aspects of the hobby. Because a lot of companies really seem like they'd rather just, not have the headache of carrying inventory, and so they're just gonna, even if it's selling like gangbusters and they could sell another 300 copies, they're just not gonna do it. And that just is like, it baffles me. It baffles me. I hate it. Because I always miss out. Like, I always miss out on the first round, and then I'm like, oh well. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't know. I just, like, I'm always just sad, because there's a lot of times they're really beautiful sculpts that come out, and I would love to get my hands on them. But because they're limited, it's like a no. And then you have to go hunt around and see if any of your friends want to part with one, right? Which is good luck. Though sometimes does work. But then you're usually paying more than you would have paid if you got it in the first place. So yeah, Reaper, thankfully, is not that kind of company, and I'm very happy about that. So I'm re-wet blending that. I'm getting to see this nice. And the other thing wet blending does, guys, is it gives you this beautiful kind of organic look. Like your wet blend is not going to be perfect, right? It's going to have like parts that are more blue, parts that are more green. And the cool thing about that is it looks like a natural mushroom, right? It's giving you a semi-randomized pattern, which otherwise is really hard to do in painting. Because as painters, we want to make things, naturally our brain wants to make things symmetrical. And, you know, it's got this idea of where each color should go. But when you wet blend, you get a little bit of flow together and you get a little bit of randomness. And that gives you something that you can leverage to get something really unique, right? When you're doing textures or highlighting or patterns. So I always loved using wet blending for that reason, because it gives you that. Other precision techniques, you're in full control, but wet blending, you get a little bit of random, and I really like that. Yeah, as the person who was running the paint department, and I had the advantage of running it from the time it was tiny up through the time that it was industrial crazy, which was when I moved out here. You need to be like supremely on the ball. Your priorities overlap, and it's a very difficult department to run. Because there's just so much going on. There's so many moving parts. There's other departments you need to work with to make sure everything is smooth. So it is not for the faint of heart, and it is fairly stressful. And it's always been a department where you needed a really good team, because you need people who are really gonna be on top of it, right? There we go. I got a little bit. I had to touch up a little bit of edging there. But yeah, it's a hard department. It's a very, very hard department to keep running. It's easy to get overwhelmed. I know I had moments when I was running it where I was like, 5 priorities all at once, you know. Though you could say that, of other departments too. Like internet has a ton of moving parts at Reaper. But it's also got some really competent people who are like on it, right? And it's got a system, and that's what you really need for those. You know, a system so that you can keep on top of it from day to day, so that you don't hit that overwhelm point. It was an interesting job. It was I miss it still. Though my back was getting bad, so lifting really heavy gallons of paint, every day was kind of probably not my best lifestyle choice at that point in my life. So my back is much better now, but it definitely takes some wear and tear on you. It is a factory job, even with the creative aspect of it. Oh, Sadie left? Yeah. I'm going to do this wet blend here. Craft paint, in order to get that to work, Gotham, It depends on the craft paint. Some of them are using a heavy vinyl base, and if it's that goopy, plasticky base, it'll actually work great for wet blending. If it's a less pigmented and not as high coverage craft paint, like there are a couple, there's a reason craft paints are cheaper, okay? And it's usually because they're using inferior, they're not using nearly as much pigment, and that means that their coverage is going to be impacted unless they use a really thick base. So yes and no, depends on. If you want to blend with craft paint, I would put your base coat down first. Like in this case, I would probably put green. I wouldn't put a dark base coat down because then it would make very hard to come up with my lighter colors. But if I started with that troll flesh mix, that green, I could totally blend blue into it. Once I had everything painted in green, then you don't have to worry about your gray showing through if your paint isn't really high coverage. So if you're using a thinner bodied paint or a paint that isn't as highly pigmented or has some transparency or whatever, then lay down a base coat first that you can work from and then do your wet blend over the top. Whereas here on the bones with these colors, I feel like I can do a wet blend just all 3 stages right over the top of this bones. But some colors are not going to do that as well. Well, Rubicon, as much as any, there have been people who have left Reaper before who were really instrumental to our day-to-day operations, and Reaper has adapted each time. Ed and Dave are pretty experienced. They understand that people move on. It's a hard niche to fill just because of you need somebody with a good eye for color. And an art background is a plus, but really, when it comes to the day-to-day mixing, you can train, as long as you've got that eye for color, you could train people to do it. It's when you come down to engineering new colors or new paint tech that you want more of somebody more with the background like I built. But even then, I wouldn't worry about Reaper too much. Reaper's really resilient, guys. Yeah, and I'm with you there, Grey Mouser. I am an employee, but I don't know anything about this, so. But the best I can say is that, Reaper will figure it out. So we're just taking kind of a long blended edge here. And I'm probably going to go heavier on the blue on the sides. Although, here I've got a blue edge, so I kind of want to keep that. And probably bring in a dark blue line and go green right up to it. Morning, Basement. Well, and Ed, frankly, guys, Ed always told me that if they needed me to come back and paint, create colors and stuff for them, would I be open to that? And I told him, yeah. So, worst case scenario, if they need help with new colors, they can always bring me back for a week or 2. Right, exactly. Yeah, exactly, Hyper Bunny. Yep. I don't know things. Sometimes it's a relief to not know things. That's why I usually go and say, that's an Ed question. That's a Ron question. But it's not like, people get stressed in their real life and they leave jobs all the time. And especially in the pandemic, a lot of people got very stressed out and a lot of people left their jobs that they'd been at for a while. So, companies adapt. So we have no idea what happened, but I wish Sadie the best. If she did it, if that announcement was for reals and she's gone, then I hope that she finds really her calling. Because, like, while I was with paint, it was definitely a calling for me. Like, I really believed in what I was doing, and I gave my all to it. But Sadie, as long as I've known her, has always been looking for that thing. She's so talented. She has so many, you know, she's really artistic. She's got a great personality, you know. She's got a lot going for her, so I hope that wherever she goes to next, she's successful. That's the best, really, you can wish anybody, right? Everybody's got to iron out their lives. Yeah, Sadie's always very health concerned, and so I'm sure the pandemic was very, very stressful for her. Queen of Creton Gold. Ooh, I'd have to see an example of that one. I didn't know they had made a Queen of Gold, actually. Usually Queen is made for reds, but they must have done some interesting chemical hokey pokey to figure out how to make it go in a different way. I'll look it up, but I haven't actually seen that color ever in person, and seeing online swatches is really not adequate. What you should have done, Trash, is brought me an example at ReaperCon, because if you brought me an example at ReaperCon, I could have looked at it and told you in a second. Otherwise, I'd have to buy a tube, and I don't know if I need to buy a tube of paint right now. Lots of home expenses right now because we just moved in. But yeah, if you ever want to know if a color has an MSP equiv and you are coming to ReaperCon, bring the color with you and show it to me in person. Like, doing that, I can tell you in 5 minutes. Trying to monkey around online with people's swatches and pictures of a color, even PY150 means nothing to me. Because if you go and type that in, you're going to get a bunch of swatches and each one is slightly different. It also doesn't tell me anything about transparency. Although with a Queen Eye, I'd assume it's pretty darn transparent. So you've got that green coming in there. I really like how this is. See, isn't this pretty? Like, I really love how this is coming out. And don't mind if you're not getting a perfect blend, right? Because you can always come back with some layering and get that transition that you want. So just take it easy. Like, wet blending is chill. Wet blending is so chill. The key is really not to put too much paint on the model. So like when I'm putting on kind of globs, I'm dabbing on kind of globs of the cyan just toward the edges. But I'm not making it go too far up because I know I want that olive to come in. Hey, Dogfather. Yeah, I know. Yeah, well, that's the thing with it, ReaperCon. Like I said at the awards ceremony, when did ReaperCon get to be Gen Con? Where you see all the people you know for 10 minutes or for 10 seconds, you know. It's like, hi, bye. And you always mean to catch up with everybody, but then you never have the time to catch up with everybody. Like, that's Gen Con. And this year, that felt like ReaperCon. And we didn't even have as many attendees. Oh, that brings it up. Hey, so those of you who watched Reaper Live yesterday, what was ReaperCon attendance this year? Yeah, that is a great thing about, like, somebody like a mushroom. You can get really creative with your colors. You can do that with dragons, too. Like, just because a dragon is green, that just means the principal color is green. And in reality, you have a crap ton of greens to choose from, and you can introduce other accent colors because you can always have scale patterns, right? So, fantasy creatures don't always be like kind of shoehorned into, like, the simple answer. Think about, like, okay, it's a green dragon, but maybe I want to go with an olive green, maybe even a pale olive green. What can I do to make that work, right? And what can I use with it? Don't remember them giving a number? No, it was not 1,000 mini entries. That was the previous year. I know exactly how many entries we got in the competition. I was just curious as to how many people we actually got at the con. But there were about 350 different artists entering. And there were, this year, I think about 750 entries. So if I had to guess, I'd guess ReaperCon was about 500 this year. Yeah. Like, and honestly, it was better than I thought it would be with COVID. So, yeah, 500. Yeah, it's like 738. Like, it was around 750 entries, right? But yeah, I was going to guess about 500 people at the con. Which is still very good for the first con after such a long, trials and tribulations period. And so many people who had to cancel. Texas, Mad Hattress. Reaper is located in Texas, and we have our con at the convention center in the town we're located in. Hey, Maharoon. Hey, long time no see. How you been? There were more than 500? Good deal, Reaper John. Thank you. That's great. Then that's absolutely, like, awesome that we could manage that in, our pandemic landscape. Like, that's really good. Thanks, John. Yeah, that makes me happy. I bet we're going to get a lot of people next ReaperCon. There we go. So we're going to take this... Yeah, it's North Texas. We're Denton, Texas. Mad Hattress is about half an hour north of Dallas. So it's the site of University of North Texas. So it's a college town. It's a larger town. Got some great restaurants, especially if you like Texas barbecue. And there's a lot of really good food. Like, that's the thing about Texas, is like really, really good food. And if you like to shop, Dallas also has excellent shopping. So does Fort Worth. But I was never a big shopper. So, like, for me, it was like, but the restaurants, the food is wonderful. Yeah. Texans know how to eat. Let's just put it that way. So I think for this little, since this isn't a symmetric, it doesn't have a symmetry to this dress. There's some little bits like this. I think I'm going to, like, just do a pure blue down here. Or maybe I'll throw in, because I still need to throw in some of that pink. So let's actually back off of that. Put in a couple of sections here. Maybe these thinner sections will be the salmon color. Or maybe I'll do salmon there, and salmon there. Let's alternate. Since this is an asymmetrical surface, let's actually play with that. Oh, about 300-400 less than 2019. That's huge. Yep, fast pellets in stock. Oh yeah, Sophie Bust. Hey, we're going to do Sophie Bust, guys. In fact, I think maybe we'll replace this model when we finish her. And I think I'm going to do a pretty quick finish on this model also, because I think I've demonstrated on it a lot of what I wanted to. So I think we're getting pretty close, but I want to do that Sophie Bust on stream. So we finally have a Reaper bust that I have in my hands that has a lot of different surfaces that is going to be great for stream. So I will actually be able to paint a Reaper bust on stream. Yeah, there's a pirate bust, not a Sophie bust, pirate bust. It's a pirate bust. My misspoken. Yes. But anyway, it's a bust, and it's really nice, and we should paint it on stream. So for the first time, I can actually... I like it a little better than some of the other busts, because I like the... I like all the different surfaces on it, so... Yeah, it's an Angelica Fairweather. Yep, they've got it. All right, so let's see here. I want... this and that. So let's block in a little bit of this salmon color. And if you already painted down some dark blue, and if you find that your salmon color doesn't want to cover great over that dark blue, you can always put down some white first. So I'm going to make just a little bit of that salmon, and I'm going to go up here and make a salmon and blue. And it'll go out to orange as well. And when you've got, like, in mixing these colors together, it doesn't work very well because you've got a lot of orange in this, and orange and blue are complements, so it grays out. It doesn't give us a nice blend like the green to blue did. So in that case, don't do the wet blend, do layering. Because then you can still make that blue blend to orange just like we've done up here, but you're going to use layering instead. And it's going to result in a more pure color in the end. Yeah, the company has a lot of fun putting on ReaperCon. It's a lot of stress and a lot of moving parts, but it's great to see our fan base and to get support from you guys in person. I'm gonna block in a little bit of coral. I really like that. It's just a good accent. I'm gonna zoom out real quick to see if I need more. So this is really lovely. I just love these colors. I can't get over it, guys. I love these colors and I cannot lie. Man, I think I'm gonna put a coral spot over here too, because it goes into the little coral bits that I put there. And that'll make us, that'll get us a little bit of parity across the board. And I might do some coral spots down here too. Maybe a little bit up there. I don't want to go too much. I really like it. You don't want to put too bright of colors, though, down low, unless you can get away with it if it's just little strips like this. Then it's an accent color, right? We've talked about color composition and accents before. Because we've got this light, bright coral up here, we can get away with putting a coral down here. But if I got really bright down here and didn't desaturate like I did up here, it would fight. Like, you'd look down here, and it would not look at the awesome, beautiful cap. So Milli Vanilli, awesome. Yeah, isn't the colors, I love the colors on this brace. I love, like, I really like red, green, blue color schemes. Like, it's one of my little happy spots that I haven't painted in a while. The D20 on stream. I don't know. It's always Labor Day weekend, Brand. So ReaperCon, and it's because we signed the hotel agreement like years in advance. So ReaperCon 2022 will be whatever Labor Day is. Usually that's the first weekend in September. Sometimes if it's a real early in September, then it stretches into August. But it's well worth going if you love the painting hobby, painting, converting, sculpting, all of that. This is a con that makes that center stage, that puts that kind of the craft center stage, the art. So, yeah, and it's always Labor Day weekend. It's always at the same hotel, though we do have other hotels partnering with us now. So, but yeah, it is the same weekend as Dragon Con, so you'd have to choose, but if you are a painter, I think it is worth skipping Dragon Con 1 year to come to ReaperCon just to experience it and see if it's your cup of tea. Because Dragon Con is a great, like, all-around con. And if you do cosplay, then Dragon Con is really where it's at, right? But if you are into miniature painting, yeah. If you're into the painting hobby, I absolutely agree that it's better than Dragon Con, But if you are a cosplayer, I think Dragon Con has more opportunities for you. Because as I recall, Dragon Con is very big with the cosplay community. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Maybe I'm thinking of a different con, but I'm pretty sure I was thinking of Dragon Con. I'm going to trim down the edges here and make them come out by using my Nightmare Black. Can always use, whenever you've got a bright or light color, you can always bring in a very dark color right next to the edge to bring out the texture of the area. Yeah. Yeah, is the con for cosplay. That's what I thought, smallish. But yeah, if you are a miniature painter, sculptor, converter, then ReaperCon is where it's at, guys. Like, there is gaming, but unlike some other miniatures cons like Adepticon, the gaming is not the primary. It would be cool to get a little more miniatures gaming going. Maybe we'll look into doing that once things return a little bit more normal, but maybe not. ReaperCon is a great miniatures con as it stands, so I'd really like to get some other vendors in the vendor hall. Like Creature Caster, I think would be a good fit. Stuff like that. This is so pretty. Pretty, it's so pretty. I love pretty. And she's a queen. She wants to be pretty. So really big blob of green on here will help it stay wet while I work with it. And you can do 2 sections, like especially with these where they've got little striations, just go up to 1 bump and stop, and then do one side first and then the other side. And putting a lot of green on here means that I can work with it and stretch it. It will stay a little bit wet. Want to be careful how much blue I bring in, though, because I've already got so much paint on the model. It's possible to get it really, really thick and goopy and kind of like not be able to work with it as well. So it's kind of a fine line. You don't want to necessarily drown the area. It is possible, if you feel like you've gotten too much paint on the area, to rinse out your brush, bring it back in, and just pick up a little bit of this stuff. And then rinse out your brush again and bring your blue back in. San Diego Comic-Con has been the bigger. Right, but San Diego has so much else going on, right? San Diego is immense. And, I mean, DragonCon is big too, but I think that San Diego is, like, really in the stratosphere big. And then, even if it is a bigger cosplay con, it tends to, like, you know, if you just go to the Comic-Con, you might just miss it. I think big cons have that problem where all of the sub communities get buried behind the noise of the entire thing. Or can get buried. Not always. But I guess people who are into it know where to go and what to do. But as a new person, it might be hard. There we go. Got a bit of a blend there going in there. Yeah, exactly. No, it is. I have friends in Canada. I run a dog nonprofit, and the people in Canada, and it's been frustrating trying to, you know, work over the border because of the closings on one side or the other or both. So yeah, valid concerns for sure. Although nothing is forever. At least not in the way we address it. I mean, COVID might be here forever, just like the flu, but it'll change and be different. So we do the best with what we have where we are. I think it was Theodore Roosevelt that said that one. Don't remember. Do the best with what you have where you are. But it's very, very valid. It's a great saying. Yeah, this is coming together really well. Trash. Oh my gosh. Oh, funny. You are hilarious. So when your paint starts to get thicker, it's actually a little bit harder to wet blend, I find. The thicker your paint, the more likely you're going to show brush strokes. Just like when you're actually applying like base coats, right? Like there's a kind of a sweet spot you want to hit where you thin your paint a little bit and it helps it self-level and flow together. You're looking for that same kind of thing with the wet blending. If you use it straight out of the bottle, it's going to cover great, but it's also going to maybe show brush strokes or transitions a little bit better. Whereas if you thin it just a little bit, I think I'm at about 4:3:1 here on these colors. Then everything tends to flow together a little bit more. If you go too thin, then it's going to just swirl together. It's all going to be a mess. That can be fun on a big flat surface, but when you've got texture, you're not necessarily looking for that. So yeah, there's kind of play around with wet blending. It's not what I would call, wet blending is not a necessary technique. You do not need to have wet blending to be a good painter or even to be a fast painter. But it is a good tool to have in your toolbox if you do value speed and if you need help with blending. Some people never quite take to it and they do just fine with other techniques like layering or airbrushing or whatever, or all of the above. But if you take to it and you enjoy it and it works well for you, it's well worth trying. And there are lots of different variations. I mean, two-brush blending is technically also wet blending. It's just a slightly different take on it. As David, my significant other, has said, I do. After watching me do this, he's like, you do two-brush blending. You just use one brush. It's like, well then, it's all wet blending. And if you want, you can do what I'm doing here and do kind of streaks. Also, you could also suggest some texture. Some of it will flow together. If there's very little paint on your brush, though, when their underlying layer has started to dry, you can get away with it. There is no thinner. There is only water, pirates. It's paint to water. I don't use, Master Series doesn't require thinner. Master Series is made to work with water. That's it. As I mentioned yesterday, there are times when I will use a little extra flow improver, but I would recommend not using various thinners with MSP. You can test if it works, great, but not all thinners are going to work with all hobby paints. It's a chemistry thing. So I always advise people that I only use water with sometimes a little bit of flow improver, extra flow improver, and it works fine. We already have flow improver added to the paint with Master Series, so it's not like, it's not necessary to use extra flow improver. I do if I'm using if I'm looking for really fine detail work and I want that little bit of surface tension break, I'll use flow improver, but otherwise water. Yeah, loaded brush is also just makes it a little bit. If you can nail loaded brush, it works great in one strike. But you've gotta nail it, and that takes practice and knowledge of how to load your brush and how much paint and what viscosity. And I can do loaded brush with two colors and get a perfect blend in one stroke. But it took me years to figure out how to do it, and that's with a 2D art background where that's a valid technique that a lot of people use. So. Yeah, my formulas, I do screw this up from time to time, but my formulations, when I give you a ratio, it's always paint to water or paint to whatever. I sometimes screw that up. I'll usually correct myself, though, if I do. I mean, loaded brush can get tricky unless you're using on big figures, right? Loaded brush is not the best technique for little stuff. Good day, Shadow Raven. See you. Have a good weekend. But yeah, when my paint gets a little too thick, I'm going to add just a bit of a drop of water on the end of my brush and mix it up. So I do want a certain level of thinness. With loaded brush also, oh, get off the border stuff, guys. Come on. Disengage. It's not important. We're here for the paint. It's all about the paint, baby. It's almost the end of the stream. I'm just going to do some blue and go in here to kind of start setting up these segments. I want more blue on the outer edge, so I'm going to come in with my cyan blue and kind of start differentiating. Whereas up here, I'm probably not. Here, I'm going to use more lighter olives because I love this subtlety that I got up here. So I'm going to keep playing with it. YouTube brand. There we go. So just wanted to get a little bit more separation because these are very large sections with the blue. Yeah, black and brown is the color of dark chocolate. And if I hadn't made the food rule for myself on naming paints, it would have been called dark chocolate. We are getting close to the end of the stream, and I just want to get this in. We almost got this entire thing kind of base coated today. I'm going to let it sit, come back. I think I need to take maybe some of this black cherry color and use that as a shader in here on this coral. But first I want to just kind of segment out these little lines at the bottom here. But yeah, pretty sure we're going to toss that Angelica Fairweather bust in after this, because this is my opportunity to... because I have one since I got one with my package as an artist. Actually, I have two because David was like, I don't know if I'll paint it. And I'm like, I will steal it. That way I can do one on stream and one off stream. The nice thing about the Angelica Fairweather bust is that she's sculpted a little more cartoony. And so if you're used to tackling faces using standard mini painting techniques, she's going to be easier for you than trying to tackle a really realistic face. It'll kind of be training wheels. It's kind of a good training wheels bust if you're wanting to get more into busts. Not brown. Yeah. Hey Crows, even if you can't afford it, it's techniques that will apply to other busts, and also to really big stuff like giants. And dragons, although there's no dragon bits on her. My desk got delayed, but my new painting desk for my not stream work, for my own personal painting, is almost here. It's out for delivery. I'm super excited. It's tempered glass like this one. You guys can't see this desk normally, but it is. I have a tempered glass art desk, which for painting I love because you can just scrape any paint that gets on it, you can scrape it off because the glass is so nice for that. So like David was looking at my desk and then looking at his desk when we moved, and he's just like, your desk is pristine. And I'm like, well, one, I always paint over paper, but two, if something gets on my desk, I can always take it off unless it's like super glue. And even then I probably just need super glue dissolver. So it's really nice. It's a beast to move, but it's really nice for hobbying to have the tempered glass. So this one is silver with kind of a blue glass, kind of a pale blue glass, and my new one is black with a smoky glass. I can't wait. Yeah, nut brown's really good. Like, it's a color that is an odd brown, but, like, it's very versatile. It's more versatile than you think it is. So there we go. Let's back out, look at what we did today. We're at about there. Yeah, isopropyl, that's what I figured. I haven't ever super glued my desk, so, but it's like, here, maybe I can slide this and show you guys. I always put down paper because I really like having paper underneath for splatters, but it's that pretty pale blue. And then I've got kind of a brushed steel finish on the rest of the desk. It's very modern. It's terribly modern, but I really like it. They don't even make it anymore, so now it's an artifact. It's vintage. All right, let's get out here. Zoom out. Look at our very pretty colors. Oh, I've already got 2. I'm good. Oh, I'm not keeping the same dark shade? Yeah. The blues vary. The blues definitely vary also. So there's transitions, and with an organic model like this, where it's a creature. Oh, look at that. Look at that angle with the coral on the bottom and that. Oh, that's lovely. Okay, I'm sold. I went from this being my least favorite model that we were working on to absolutely loving the colors now on it. So, like, I'm totally on it. I love, love, love it. Yeah, I'm loving this color scheme. It's so nice. So I'm very happy. We'll keep working on this. What we've got left, I need to do the other hand like this one. I pretty much have the spots. All my speckles are good here. So I'm pretty happy with this. I may lighten a little bit more of the edge, but I'm pretty happy with the way this looks kind of fleshy. We need to highlight our brown here a little bit, maybe shade it a little bit more too. So I've got some green shading in there, but I think I want just a little bit more. Then we need to finish this bit, and we need to add this blue bit. But honestly, guys, like, I'm going to get this to really close to done, and then I might do like I'm going to finish this off screen because it's going to take a while. I don't know. I don't want to bore you guys. Although this did go pretty quick once I figured it out, what I was doing with the blue. So we probably could finish this and some other stuff in one stream if I applied myself and didn't get totally distracted. Ah. Yeah. Reaper has been a bit busy. ReaperCon always disrupts everything for like 2 weeks on either side. But yes, if you didn't get a VIP bundle, they are still online. You can pick them up and get all the tasty, painty, and model-y goodness out of them. And the random stuff like the paint water cups, which are always useful. So I hope you guys all had a great time at ReaperCon. We certainly did. It was great to see you all in person, and like all of you patrons who came up to those who were on my Patreon, thanks for your support. You keep me going. Like, you really, in a real physical, solid, and also inspirational, motivational way, you all keep me going. My Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig for those who want to go check it out. I do have some fun free stuff up there, as well as a handout from my ReaperCon class from last year, Thinning MSP Paints, which you can still find on the Reaper YouTube. So if you want an AND class, but you didn't get into any, but you haven't watched the Thinning MSP Paints class, you should watch that, and then you should go over to my Patreon and get the handout. Yes, I think we're all good. Reaper, if you got a raid queued up, Rocket, we're about ready. What we did today. Wow, we did so much. Like, I did some touch-ups, and I did all of this wonderful blue to green transitioning on her skirt. We just have a couple of sections that we need to figure out. We've really got a beautiful color dynamic going now between the back and the side, like the side where you can see some of that going on, and then you can really see there. You know, it's starting to be, I think, a really beautiful piece. Like the fact that we can see some of this coral here, and it really directly like gets you up here and down there. You want to do that. You always want to repeat the colors around the model and make sure you can see them from various angles. So we were doing that by adding in this coral. We have made it so that you can always see a bit of that. You know, it's not just up top. It's also repeated at the bottom of the figure. It's just repeated smaller because it's a bright color, and you want most of the attention still going up here where she's like summoning her power to, you know, shroom blast you out of existence. Shroom blast needs to be a D&D ability. So yeah. Oh, did Trash give us the link? Like, that's fantastic. Yes. Thanks, everybody, for coming and being positive. Oh, it's not working? Do we need... You're a mod, aren't you? Oh, well. Let me just text Justin in case he's gotten busy. Whenever I go to text him, I'm... It's always like I text him and he's already got stuff queued up. Raid. You have a sec. There. Awesome. Yeah, that's Twitch, right? Boop. Yeah, the problem with this model is it's too big. You can't see it appreciably. Like, you can't really, like, see it unless I turn it. Unless I'm fully zoomed. Fully zoomed! Any other questions, you guys, while we're, like, pausing at the end of the stream? I hope you all have a lovely weekend. I am planning to get the rest of the house unpacked. And get my new desk set up. And my other new desk set up. I have way too many desks now. I'm kind of happy, though. The new house is awesome. Like, oh, there we go. Miniature stand. We're going to the Alpaca Nation. Awesome. But yeah, the new house is fantastic. Regala, I love it. I just want to get it all set up. Like, now I'm just, like, impatient to have it all set up. So have a great one, everybody, and have a fantastic weekend. And I'll see you guys again Monday when we will work on Lizette, another model we're almost done with. Man, we're going to be starting a whole bunch of new ones all at once. See you guys later and have a fine day. Adios.